This is gonna be an unpopular video. I can already see the angry Skylor fans coming to attack me. But like, listen, all I ask is that you hear me out, okay? Like, I'm not saying you have to agree with me on any of this, just please don't yell at me until you've at least heard what I have to say. Alright? Okay, I'm not gonna get murdered in my sleep tonight. So, Skylor. I'm not gonna say that she's my least favorite Ninjago character, because she's not, that title goes to Misako, but she is a very close second. Skylor made her debut in the first episode of Tournament of Elements when Kai saw her on the docks and instantly fell in love with her. Now, ignoring the remarkably subtle symbolism of them literally climbing aboard a ship together, this is already setting off some trope alarm bells in my head. Ninjago has a slight habit of introducing new characters and turning them into love interests.
You are Zane, a droid like me.
It's happened maybe once or twice.
We have to live up to a role that was bestowed upon us.
Like, every so often.
I guess this is...
I could go on.
Dang!
Now, I'm not saying this is a reason to dislike Skylor right out of the gate. I'm just saying it's been done. So then we follow her for the rest of Tournament, and honestly, I think she was an okay character in Season 4. I don't think Tournament did anything wrong with her. The problem, which I'm gonna get into, is more so the lack of a proper follow-up. I'll explain what I mean. So the first half of Tournament sets up Skylor as a really solid character. She has a strong personality, she can fight well, she's kind of mysterious for a while, but then we learn more about her and her motivations start to make sense, and I think the first half of Tournament dealt with her really well. But then we got her turning point, per se, in the Forgotten Element, and I think this is really where the issue started. So backing up a little, what is the issue? Why do I not like Skylor? Well, a short answer is the Kailor ship. Don't take that the wrong way. This is not a ship hate video. I'm just saying, I'll explain. Just bear with me. So Skylor has lived a very interesting life. I mean, she was born to a cannibalistic cult leader who exploits her to use her powers of elemental absorption to turn his entire cult into snake people.
Just another day in Ninjago!
She's not lacking in backstory. And in Tournament, we see how Chen's control over her affects her ability to grow close to other people. It makes sense that her first instincts towards Kai would be to sort of manipulate him and get in his head because that's how she's been treated her whole life. And then in the episode The Forgotten Element, we get her turning point where she finally decides to stand against Chen and team up with the ninja. And this is an extremely pivotal moment, not just in her character arc, but in her life. She's been under Chen's thumb for as long as she can remember. She's never known any different. So to finally decide to break out of that would take a lot of bravery and one heck of a motivation. But the way that the episode plays out, we kind of watch the whole thing through Kai's point of view, meaning that it looks like her only motivation in this moment is Kai, who she met like a few days ago. Go ahead and say what you will about love at first sight or whatever, but this just felt unrealistic, or at least underexplored. If we'd learned more through her perspective, we would have had a real reason to root for her later on. But by hinging everything on Kai, the only reason we have to care about Skylor is that relationship with Kai. All her previous motivations have been torn down because she's changed sides and Chen is no longer manipulating her. And because we don't see what prompted this change internally for her, she's given no platform to further develop her character. Just taking the basic events into account, she seems like someone who'd have a lot of unaddressed trauma. I mean, she got uprooted from the home and the life that's all she's ever known. Do you know what that would psychologically do to someone? Kai even mentions this in Hands of Time. He says something like, you go your whole life believing one thing and then suddenly another thing is true, and he goes to Skylor specifically because he knows that she's gone through a similar thing. But again, it's all through Kai's point of view. Skylor's side of the story never gets explored. And because she's been filtered like this through Kai, she can't do anything on her own. Everything she does, every appearance, every interaction centers around Kai. This means the only way to form an attachment with her character is to form an attachment with the Kailor ship. But the way that we form attachments with ships is the characters. Do you see where the problem is? In Tournament, we're handed this dynamic where Skylor is the sensible, cool-headed, in-control person, and Kai is the simp who is helplessly in love with her.
Fire will melt her icy heart.
And this isn't inherently a bad way to start off two characters, especially considering it was sort of enemies to lovers. The problem is that this is still their dynamic, 12 seasons later. The whole point of pairing two characters up is so that they can learn from each other and grow as people. But because Skylor has been stripped of all her character outside of this relationship, she has nothing new to offer other than the dynamic we've already been handed. So it prevents Skylor from developing, but also Kai, because they've both been trapped in this stagnant back and forth that isn't changing. What keeps happening is they'll meet up every few seasons to solve some kind of world-ending crisis or whatever, and little hints will be dropped that there might be something between them, but then nothing comes of it, and the cycle just repeats. They're in this strange situation where, like, Kailor is a canon ship, but they're not canonically together. It's kind of weird. And because there's been no growth in their relationship, they're still in this position where Skylor has all the control and Kai is just kind of following her around. All Skylor has to do is ask him out once and he will say yes. But then Kai has made admittedly poor attempts to do this multiple times and she keeps turning him down. It's very unclear if she's like intentionally playing hard to get or if she's just not interested in him, but either way, it's not great because if she's not interested in him, she needs to just straight up tell him that instead of keeping him tied to this tether. But then if she is intentionally playing games with him, that's not good because that's just proof of what I've been saying. Nothing has changed since tournament. She's still manipulating him and getting inside his head. It's kind of ironic because in the context of the show, Skylor has all the control, but her very existence depends on Kai, meaning there's no easy way to break them out of it either, which is why they've been stuck like this for the past 12 seasons. Now, here's something to consider. Maybe Skylor's hesitance to grow close to Kai has something to do with her unaddressed trauma from Tournament of Elements. Maybe that's something that should have been explored. This would have made for a much more interesting dynamic because Kai is also a person with a lot of unaddressed trauma. Think about an alternate version of Skylor where we actually see them work through this stuff together, they learn more about each other, and ultimately they're better because of it. But because this has never been mentioned ever, we're left to assume that Skylor's just kind of being a jerk. We've been playing this game of cat and mouse for 12 seasons and people have gotten used to it. They're like, oh yeah, this is just how Kailor is, but no, this is not a healthy relationship. Another thing is the way that they interact implies that Skylor's the smart one and Kai is just a self-centered idiot. But that's not true. That is not what Kai is like at all. He is exactly the opposite of that. He's selfless. He protects everyone else around him to the point that he kind of hates himself because he thinks if he can't protect others, then he has no purpose in life. But this is not reflected in his relationship with Skylor at all. Skylor degrades him. He becomes a shell of himself when she's around. Speaking of, Skylor is never around. She wanders in and out of his life as in when the world happens to be ending, but we never see her other than that. As a person, she has all the control, but as a character, she has zero agency. And it really doesn't feel like she regards Kai as an equal. She'll kind of playfully flirt with him, but then she'll seriously get mad if he returns that affection, like crystallized. Let's talk about the Safe Haven episode for a minute, because, I mean, there's a whole world of things I could say about Safe Haven, but no, so Skylor drops down from this wall and says,
Hiya, hotshot.
But then one episode later, when Kai actually asks her out, she gets really mad at him and starts yelling at him, and it's like, Skylor, bro. Like, I know that Kai is not the most supremely intelligent being on the planet, but she kind of brought this on herself. Also, while we're on the subject of crystallized, I just want to point out, Skylor showed up early on in the season. She had quite a lot of dialogue, she did some stuff, but then the team got thrown in jail. And do you want to know what happened? As soon as she got separated from Kai, she went without a single line of dialogue for 14 episodes. Not including Fall of the Monastery and The Darkness Within, which were back to back, by the way. But other than that, 14 episodes! I was actually laughing watching A Lesson in Anger because Skylor's there, she's in the room, but she doesn't say anything. Do you want to know what she's doing? As everyone else is arguing back and forth, Skylor is just in the background, looking angry. But it's like, unless Kai initiates some kind of interaction, she has literally nothing to do.
I guess quality noodles is all I'm good for.
And again, it all comes back to the fact that we know nothing about her other than Kai and the tournament, but the tournament doesn't exist anymore, so it's like, yeah. Really, why are they still together? Even are they still together? Because the ending of Crystallized was pretty ambiguous on that matter. Skylor said,
How about we save Ninjago first, then maybe we talk about us.
But then they never talked! My biggest issue with Kyla really is what a running gag it's being treated like. Skylor shows up, Kai does something dumb, and then she disappears. And because this is all we ever see of her, Skylor herself is being treated like a running gag. This has been going on long enough to the point where I just don't like her anymore. She's just not a very likable person. This would be a lot more excusable if we had actual reasons to back up her behavior, but we don't. Skylor deserves a character arc that lets her live and breathe as her own person, and Kai deserves someone who cares about him. At least Kai has other facets to his existence that make him likable, but Skylor has nothing. They need to be split up, is what I'm saying. Or, like, that's what I would say if we were back in even season 9 or whatever. But considering we're at season 15, 16, we have so many seasons, we can't even agree on how many seasons we have. But, like, this has just been going on for too long, is my point. But there's nothing that can really be done about it now. I mean, it's not like there's anyone else who Kai has this kind of long-running connection with, who he spends all his time with, who he is next to at every waking second of every day. That was a joke. No, so this has been my slightly rambly, slightly discombobulated rant about why I don't really like Skylor. I think she had a lot of potential, but it just hasn't been met. And it's gotten to the point where it's not funny anymore, it's just annoying. I know that people are gonna get angry at me for saying this, and I'm sorry, I just don't like her. So I'm glad you could tune in and listen to me complain about a Lego for 10 minutes, because this is obviously the peak of entertainment. So yeah, welcome back to I Don't Know How to Make Outros. Well, actually, now that I have you here, if you made it this far, remember when I said there was a whole world of things I could talk about in relation to Safe Haven? So this lamppost, why? So take a minute and look at this scene with me real quick. Skylor is like running through the streets with Kai, Cole, and Jake, I think, and they're in the middle of this active war zone. But for one shot, she is on top of this random lamppost for no reason. Like, she's just trying to look unnecessarily cool at this point. But are you seriously telling me that Kai and Cole just waited on the ground for her to climb up this lamppost just to look both ways and go, oh, coast is clear, climb back down? Like Skylor, why? Skylor, what are you doing?